Hey everyone, we're here for the talk for Brian Kaney, Firewall FHIR. Brian is the owner at FHIR. You may have seen him at other presentations. And I think you want to keep this really interactive, right, Brian? So
yeah, which means there aren't many slides.
So, any questions, raise your hand.
Okay. So really what I wanted to do here is we, a lot of us work in like commercially, and we have a lot of organizations that we work with, like the larger institutions, and many times we're trying to use tooling and work with FHIR in a way that's difficult because of like corporate VPNs and things like that. And so this is just a few things that we learned over the years, and pointing out some of the newer, less documented or hard to find documented features in some of the open source tooling that you might want to take advantage of if you are also in an institution and finding it difficult to reach either registry or packages.FHIR or packages 2 or packages 3 or in one of those things. Packages N. So, yep. So I'm hoping that like if anyone else here works at an institution with FHIR and they had some similar stories, I'd be happy to have some discussion about that. And so the ideas here is we see a lot of needs for internal IGs, and I kind of, maybe fortunately, unfortunately, use IG to also mean FHIR package. I kind of just blend them all as like, sorry. But, which is kind of, might seem strange because like FHIR is all about interoperability. Why would you ever need internal IGs? Well, the reality is many times when we're creating knowledge artifacts, maybe we have internal assessments or quality measures or guidelines. We don't want them to necessarily be public all the time. And so there are some needs for them. Kind of go over some of the tech obstacles we run into and some of the workarounds, and then talk a little bit about compatibility with the standards with the tooling. And by this tooling, I mean like mostly the HL7 or MITRE tooling. So I don't know. Does everyone here work in a like big institution or know of one? Hopefully. You've heard of one? How many people like it when the person talking asks you to raise your hand? Oh, look at it. I always hated that, and then I'm doing it because it's a deflecting, Anyway, so network access can be a problem. Like we've had, we've worked with a hospital system. I'm in the Boston area, and for some reason they got like decline listed to actually go to the registry. I guess the simplifier folks thought there was a DDoS attack or something, so we had that situation. We also now work in other bigger institutions where it's quite common with like Maven Central or NPM to not have your entire 30,000 laptop or more software developers connecting to these registries directly. Many times, in fact, it's quite common, there's an internal like Artifactory or a similar product that you're configured to when you're on the VPN. So that's like problem number one. So if you're trying to like run Sushi or run the IG Publisher and you can't connect to the upstream official FHIR registries, you're kind of like, you've hit a wall. So two ideas. One is talk to the corporate firewall security group and ask them to unblock it for you. That's the easiest. Definitely an option. Or actually, you're right. It's seemingly the easiest. But big corporations have processes around this, and you might hit a dead end there as well. The other option that we've experimented with is we actually run our own local registry. That way, the firewall group doesn't need to open this this to the entire organization. They can just have one server running, like an Artifactory, or literally an Artifactory, and you can configure your tooling to use that. And this was actually quite difficult until fairly recently. And if we look at this Confluence page, the IG publisher tooling now actually has this file called FHIR settings. And part of this FHIR settings, you can actually set up, in this package management section, you can actually, oh, did I skip it? Yeah, you can set up which servers you can, am I here? Right here. Right, so you can actually set up what server you'll use instead of the hard-coded ones, the kind of official ones, I guess. And before this was actually really difficult to work around, but now this is a lot easier. And this concept works with the Sushi tool as well, and so you can kind of use this in both places. So there are some workarounds. So I have a little Verdaccio. So Verdaccio is like a open source version of Artifactory, basically. And if I look at the config real quick, I can set up, I have a couple uplinks. So Verdaccio calls them uplinks. They're mirrors, or it's like uplinks, I guess. In this case, I have packages and packages 2. I wasn't kidding. Maybe there's a packages 3. I don't know. Or pre-packages. And when I run this, I just basically running this in Docker. Now I can, oops. Now I can, I can specify my, in this case, NPM registry to where my Verdaccio is running. And in this case, I'm just going to try to view US core. And if this works, Verdaccio, yeah, is going to go out to the uplinks as I specified, and now I can use this. And so now having a local, or having kind of an in-corporate VPN Artifactory combined with this setting gives you now kind of unblocks that whole situation. So that was one kind of area that took a long time to figure out, but that hopefully is helpful to some of you. Oops. Right. So as I mentioned at the beginning, there is a need for internal IGs. We have them. And a lot of the open source tooling is kind of not built with that requirement, or at least wasn't initially. It was more built for public policy around the planet sort of thing. There's some tension there with trying to make it work for these kind of commercial situations. And so some of them is this content, a lot of people want this to stay within the corporate VPN. Many times they want to use existing artifact registries and manage digital rights. And so all this is, what I showed you before was kind of was leading to this, but one of the patterns of figuring out how the whole uplinks thing to work, at least in the NPM world, which the FHIR package is inspired by, is to use NPM scopes. And so NPM scopes not only allow you to scope a package, they also allow you to, in your proxy or your package registry, you can use those scopes as to set up rules. So if my org, then I know I can say my org is this registry, or if it has no scope whatsoever, maybe assume that's the public HL7 registry, so on and so forth. These scopes are starting to be supported in the specifications. Gino's very excited for them, I think. And the way that's done is there's some extensions that have been added. So right now on the actual implementation guide resource, there's this extension called package scope. And so this lets you identify at the implementation guide resource level what the package scope is for it. This is also, we were just had another talk, this is also kind of predicated on that thing that the implementation guide is somehow related to a FHIR package, which may or may not be true. The other kind of hint that this is starting to move is if we look at in the Sushi project, you can now add this extension both at, we could always add extensions to the root level of Sushi config YAML, but now you can actually add that extension onto dependencies. So now you can actually list out dependencies. And one of the things that you always have to consider here is you don't want to like break any existing functionality because there's a lot of stuff already out there. Now this doesn't actually do anything yet, but it does, at least from a tooling point of view, allow us to specify scopes. The kind of workaround for that, since it doesn't do anything yet other than let us document the scope, is we're just writing tooling to manually manipulate the local, your local .FHIR cache directory. And so we have wrapper scripts that kind of go around the tooling. There is this nice package that MITRE put together. They kind of broke out the package loading part from Sushi, and so this is like a kind of a standalone FHIR package loader that lets you specify different registries, and so this is a tool you could use, but the upshot is we have our own kind of logic that would look at these scopes, figure out what the uplinks are supposed to be, and then just manually download them and put them in your ~FHIR directory so that the tooling will look there. I guess to take a step back, the open source HL7 tooling all looks at like this special directory ~FHIR for a whole bunch of things, including packages you may have already downloaded. I don't know if the Firely tooling uses the same convention. It does? Okay, so this is broadly useful then, this sort of approach. And then managing access. So in CRMI and just in the FHIR spec itself, you can annotate all of these artifacts with things like publisher and license and all that sort of stuff. And in fact, there are some profiles, there's like shareable profiles in CRMI that actually enforces this, or at least enforces that you document this, but actually enforcing that, and this happened, like there's even code systems that you need a license to access. I think a lot of you probably know like CPT, and so this is like a thing. There's no like real off-the-shelf or even specified way to enforce these rights. But my understanding is there's a nice product from Firely called Simplifier that you can manage permissions for groups to be able to have access to packages. You could build your own, or you could try and use an existing Artifactory. So that was kind of it, this kind of area around troubles that we had with like corporate settings and some solutions. Be happy to field any questions, or if anyone has their own experiences trying to use FHIR in a corporate setting, that would be great too.
Are you sure? Good stuff. Thank you. I wonder, do you have guidance, or should we invent guidance on things like explicit versioning versus latest, which cause triggering back to calls and all that kind of stuff? Do you have experience? Want to play in that space?
Yeah, what do you mean by triggering back calls?
So, for instance, if you're in IG Publisher and you're saying latest, every time you run, it has to ask, is it latest?
Oh,
and sometimes it's, there's pieces of tooling that are smarter of saying, hey, I checked 2 seconds ago, don't check now.
Yeah.
And there's pieces of tooling that say, well, you asked me for latest, let me go see if there's a latest. And so even when you cache through things like Artifactory, I don't know if there's settings in there, it's been a minute, to say how often it will go and check.
Yeah.
But if you're specifically asking for latest, you kind of have to go through, whereas if you say 4.0, that can be resolved locally without even hitting the next level up?
My instinct is that, it seems a little overbearing to actually write into a spec what latest means and how often you should check. So I kind of suspect or feel like maybe the client's responsibility to know, like, I haven't checked and I'm looking for latest and spend 5 minutes, so I'm going to check again. That's just a gut reaction. I don't.
Oh, I was just saying if you specify like FHIR R4 latest
Yeah.
versus FHIR R4 401, when you say latest,
Yeah.
it has to check the registry every time you build.
Yeah,
Whereas 401 can resolve both.
that's right.
Please repeat, because it's not recorded.
For the recording, yeah, my question was around like, if you're using FHIR R4, you can say hl7.fire.r4.core, and you could use version latest, or you could use 4.0.1. And if you do 4.0.1, it can resolve off your local FHIR cache
Yeah,
or all those
yeah, yeah.
things. And if you say latest,
Yeah.
it has to ask the registry if it's actually the latest.
And I didn't really answer it for the record.
That was clear. That was clear. Thank you.
Thanks for your talk. And sorry, maybe this question is kind of naive, but I was wondering if there is something Simplifier offer like a paid plan similar to like GitHub Enterprise that people could, like organization could have like their own FHIR IG managed and only be applied like.
No, they don't do that. Nope.
Thank you, Brian. No, thanks for asking to give a product picture. But no, we do have a paid plan, and we have started building a marketplace where you can also expose that you have packages available, or you can keep them private all the way together, and are going to offer a private package API for those. Yeah. Okay. Oh, I'm just going to. Sorry, I saw John first. Yeah.
I don't know if this covers things like VSAC and licensed code system, like Loing, SNOMED, et cetera, where you have to supply a license to be able to get at those.
Yeah, I mean, this was more about how we document like what the license is and who the publisher is. Dealing with the exchange of contracts or whatever isn't really in scope for any of these specifications. And for us, we kind of just manually track that. There's no automated API to know that you have those licenses. So I mean, I'm not sure. Was your question how to solve the problem of figuring out who has access to CPT codes, for instance?
So I was thinking if you're trying to download an IG into a package,
Yeah.
you have to have license to VSAC to
Yeah.
get at, value set, BMI, whatever, or similarly with SNOMED. Now, if you put those in your package, you better have license to them. I mean, maybe they're not visible outside the corporation, so you're protected, but I don't know. There's a couple of parts.
it is
One
a
is
good- it
mirroring
is-
that
yeah,
content, and the other is if you put it in a package somewhere, you have the right to do that.
Yeah, I think it is a good point. Like, I can think of, like, we were talking about the $ package operation next door. It might be good to be able to also know up front when you're looking at a dependency, also if that dependency has a license requirement. So that would be something to think about.
Thank you, Brian. I have a question. You were asking about who has experience with managing packages not in a national setting, but in a commercial setting, right? Large enterprise setting.
Yeah.
And this is not a technical question, but for customers that we have in that space, it's more sometimes difficult to balance between business units wanting to own or have speed and flexibility in building packages or artifacts or whatever. And then there's this need for a more corporate, enterprise-wide governance to make sure that everyone's doing the same thing, or not the same thing, but to be in alignment. And there's this continuous push and pull between centralized and decentralized. What is your experience?
So I might go 3 for 3 in unanswering questions. I mean, I think our experience is, I have not had that same experience with the tension up and down, because I think our group is fairly isolated, like the groups that we're working in. FHIR is kind of new even to the biggest companies in health right now. And so I think I haven't really had the same experience that you just said. But maybe someone else here has. I mean, I'm not sure what the tension is, if it's, is it about validation and access, or is it more about?
If you do have, please come to the front, because this is the end of the session.
Okay.
You've made it to the end of the conference. We have the closing session in 15 minutes. It's going to be exciting. Tim Abbott from Zulip. But not before we thank Brian Kaney.
Thank you.